from Malaysia, Madani. Thanks for choosing Updates at Noon. I'm Renee Fong. And making our headlines today, Lima 23 enhances bilateral relations and trade engagement. KBS channels funds for missing Malaysian rescue operation on Everest. The Langkawi International Maritime and Aerospace Exhibition Lima 23 has seen increased interest in enhancing bilateral relations, investment and trade engagement among the countries and companies involved. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim said this positive development was not only seen in the aerospace sector but also the maritime sector.
In this particular Lima, we have seen additional engagement and interest in terms of not only enhancing bilateral relations, but in terms of investments and trade within partners, among partners. What we have achieved and seen in the last few days, and inshallah in the next 1 or 2 days, is a more robust engagement, performance, both in the aerospace but also in the maritime sector.
Besides that, the Premier said the relationship between Malaysia and countries that had participated in previous Lima also remained strong, especially among ASEAN countries, Turkey, the United States, Russia and Romania. Datuk Seri Anwar was speaking at the International Maritime Conference reception in conjunction with Lima 23 last night. Also present were Transport Minister Anthony Loke and Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir. At a separate event, Datuk Seri Anwar said the e-Tunai Belia Rahmah aid would be given out in June. The 200 ringgit e-Tunai Belia Rahmah assistance involving an allocation of 400 million ringgit is an initiative announced in Budget 2023 to help ease the financial burden of youths aged between 18 and 20.
Kalau Menteri Kewangan kata, betul lah. Tapi kalau TikTok kata, nanti ni Menteri Kewangan nak jawab. Okey? Wawa kata, belia-belia nak dapat. Ini bulan 5 nah. Okeylah, insyaAllah. Bulan 6 kita bagi.
He said this at the Santai Petang dan Dialog with the Prime Minister at the Langkawi Vocational College. At the event, which was attended by more than 1,000 youths, the Premier called on the younger generation as future leaders of the country to possess values and ideals which can bring changes to themselves and society. He also reminded youths not to abandon the reading culture because the knowledge gained through reading could help them evaluate issues and uphold justice. Malaysia has pledged financial support and contributions in kind totaling $400,000 to International Maritime Organization IMO related funds. Transport Minister Anthony Loke said Malaysia had also announced its candidature for re-election to the IMO Council Category C for 2024 to 2025 biennium in March 2023. Malaysia is also keen to continue its constructive, proactive and positive engagement within the IMO, particularly through its membership on the Council.
Promote maritime cooperation, enhance working relationships with other member states, offer capacity building, and encourage the ratification and implementation of IMO-related instruments.
Loke said this in his welcoming remarks during the International Maritime Conference reception in conjunction with the Lima 23 last night. Also present were Prime Minister Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim and Foreign Minister Datuk Sri Dr. Zamri Abdul Kadir. Loke added that Malaysia will be organising the sub-regional training course for auditors under the IMO Member States Audit Scheme, MSAS, in collaboration with IMO next month. 8 countries, Cambodia, Philippines, Brunei, Singapore, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Fiji and Papua will participate in this event. The government, through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, has channelled 1.48 million ringgit in financial assistance to the Altitude Exploration Club to facilitate the search for a hearing-impaired mountaineer Muhammad Hawari Hashim, who was reported missing on 18th May during the Malaysia Everest 2023 mission. The aid is to enable the search and rescue SAR operation to be intensified before all activities on Mount Everest are stopped next Monday. According to the Consular Division Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Datuk Muhammad Ali Selamat, efforts to locate Muhammad Hawari are being actively carried out in all places, camps and tents.
Pihak Kedutaan Besar Malaysia di Kathmandu memaklumkan bahawa kawasan pencarian telah ditambah meliputi kawasan pendakian yang bermula daripada kawasan Tibet lah. So operators yang berada di jalan pendakian daripada area Tibet itu telah dimaklumkan untuk membantu mengesan saudara Hawari lah. So jadi usaha kerajaan sekarang ni diperluaskan lagi lah, bukan semata-mata di kawasan Nepal, tapi juga di kawasan sebelah sana, di kawasan penguasaan Tibet.
The SAR mission must be carried out quickly because all climbers are required to come down from Everest before 20th May, as all climbing activities will be stopped from 29th May for safety reasons. Meanwhile, the remains of ME 2023 climber, who is also Kedah Civil Defence Force APM Director, Lieutenant Colonel Awang Askandar Ampuan Yaakob, arrived at TU Teaching Hospital Kathmandu for an autopsy and documentation matters. The Foreign Ministry in a statement informed that charge of the affairs of the Malaysian Embassy in Kathmandu, Muhammad Fadli Abu Hassan, was present to receive the remains and help arrange the repatriation process. It said the autopsy and documentation process are expected to take 2 days. Meanwhile, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Sabah, Sarawak Affairs and Special Functions, Datuk Armizan Muhammad Ali, said the remains will arrive in the home country latest by this Saturday.
Kita akan menerbangkan jenazah tersebut ke Malaysia dan seterusnya dibawa balik ke Sabah, ke Kota Kinabalu untuk kita memenuhi hasrat ahli keluarga beliau yang inginkan jenazah Allahyarham dikebumikan di kampung beliau sendiri. Kita jangkakan insya-Allah pada hari Jumaat ini jenazah akan dapat sampai ke Kota Kinabalu dan kemungkinan pada hari yang sama atau selewat-lewatnya pada hari Sabtu penguburan jenazah itu boleh dilakukan di Kampung Benoni Papat.
Awang Iskandar, 56, was reported to have fallen when making the final ascent at 8,000 meters and was pronounced dead while being treated at Camp 4. The Agro Madani Sales Program, which was launched on 16th April, offers savings to 1.8 million B40 and M40 households. In a statement, the Agriculture and Food Security Ministry said as of 30th April, a total of 424 programs involving 6,312 entrepreneurs with a total sales value of 9.35 million ringgit had been organized.
It said the ministry plans to hold 900 agro-Madani sales programs nationwide this year, involving a total of 13,000 entrepreneurs with a target sales value of 13.5 million ringgit. The agro-Madani sales program, held in strategic and selected locations, is a rebranding of the direct sales from farm program implemented by Pharma, the Farmers Organisation Board and the Fisheries Development Authority of Malaysia, LKIM. The program seeks to improve the accessibility and availability of selected fresh products to consumers at a price that is 10 to 30% less than the market. Fresh vegetables, fruits, chicken, eggs, fish, cooking oil, flour, rice, and basic food products are among the items available.
Foreign front, at least 6 killed in central Afghanistan flood. Six people have been killed and dozens of homes washed away in central Afghanistan after heavy rains were funneled down mountain valleys, causing devastating floods.
Abdul Wahid Hamas, a spokesman for the Taliban governor in central Ghor province, said the area hit by high waters on Tuesday has not seen such a flood at least in the last decade. He said 3 women and a child were killed when their home was washed away in the provincial capital of Firozkoh, 280 kilometers east of the city of Herat. In Pasaban district in the same province, a man and a woman were also swept away and later found dead, while one person remains missing after the flood. More than 100 houses and about 200 hectares of agricultural land were destroyed, with canals used to irrigate the fields damaged. Ghor province has also been at the epicenter of a prolonged drought in recent years, exacerbating a humanitarian crisis in motion since the collapse of the US-backed government in 2021.
A typhoon that slammed into Guam, knocking out power and flooding buildings with a powerful storm surge, was moving away Thursday, leaving residents of the U.S. Pacific Ocean territory to survey the damage. Governor Lou Leon Guerrero was set to venture out when conditions allowed to see what damage has been wrought on the island, a key U.S. military outpost and home to 170,000 people.
The U.S. National Weather Service reported Mawar brought winds of up to 225 kilometers an hour, generating waves 9 meters high. There were no reported deaths or injuries. The Guam Power Authority said tens of thousands of homes were without power Thursday, but noted that a total blackout had been avoided. Mawar was now a super typhoon, and forecasting models suggested it was heading towards Taiwan or the Philippines. In Washington, the White House said President Joe Biden had been briefed on the situation. About 21,700 U.S. military personnel and their families are based on Guam, which routinely hosts nuclear attack submarines and long-range bombers.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres on Wednesday called on nations to immediately ramp up funding to prevent a catastrophe in the Horn of Africa, which is suffering its worst drought in generations. The United Nations says that more than 43 million people across Somalia, Ethiopia and Kenya are in urgent need of life-saving and life-sustaining assistance.
We must act now to prevent crisis from turning into catastrophe. Make no mistake, action will make all the difference. Last year, thanks to generous support from donor countries, we delivered life-saving assistance to 20 million people, and we helped avert a famine. Now support must match the scale of the challenge.
The Secretary-General said only 20% of the UN's humanitarian response plan for the region was funded so far. The UN humanitarian agency OCHA has said that amounts to only $1.63 billion pledged. Since late 2020, countries on the Horn of Africa, Djibouti, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan and Sudan have been suffering the worst drought in 40 years.
More than 1 million Somalis have been displaced within their own country in just over 4 months through a toxic mix of drought, conflict and floods. According to UN refugee agency UNHCR and Norwegian Refugee Council NRC, around 433,000 people were forced from their homes between 1st January and 10th May as a grinding Islamist insurgency raged and clashes broke out in the breakaway Somaliland region.
In a joint statement, the two agencies said over 408,000 people were displaced by floods sweeping across their villages, and another 312,000 people were displaced by ravaging drought. The UN humanitarian agency OCHA said last week at least 43.3 million people require life-saving and life-sustaining assistance in the Horn of Africa. The number of people displaced within Somalia's borders now stands at 3.8 million, with 6.7 million people struggling to find food, according to UNHCR and NRC. Most of the families have fled the Hiran region in central Somalia and Gedo in the south of the country of 17 million people and are arriving in overcrowded urban areas, putting a strain on already stretched resources.
U.S. President Joe Biden will nominate Air Force General Charles Brown to replace Army General Mark Milley as the country's top military officer. Brown would become the second black officer to serve as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff after Colin Powell from 1989 to 1993, at a time when the Pentagon is headed by Lloyd Austin, the country's first black Secretary of Defense.
In a statement, the White House said the nomination for Brown to replace Milley, whose term ends in September, will be made at a Rose Garden ceremony. Brown, who currently serves as Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force and was commissioned as an officer in 1984, is an experienced pilot with more than 3,000 flight hours, 130 of them in combat. He has commanded a fighter squadron and 2 fighter wings, as well as U.S. Air Forces under the Central Command and Indo-Pacific Command. Brown will still need to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate in order to replace Milley, who has served as chairman since 2019.
Japanese electronic car maker Spark are celebrating after their production vehicle broke 2 speed records on Tuesday and reached speeds of nearly 200 miles per hour. The Owl was put through its paces at Alvington Airfield in northern England, grabbing Guinness World Record for average speeds over 1/4 and 1/8 of a mile.
For 1/8 of a mile, it averaged 309.02 km per hour or 192.02 miles per hour, and for 1/4 of a mile, 318.85 km per hour or 198.12 miles per hour. The hypercar can accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 1.72 seconds, has a top speed of 260 miles per hour and a range of about 250 miles, and takes 40 minutes to charge. However, it doesn't come cheap. To buy one of the initial run of 50 vehicles, you will need £2.5 million. Based in Osaka, Japan, Spark has been working on the development of the Owl electric ultra-performance vehicles since 2015. It is a growing company and has more than 3,500 employees and 25 offices worldwide. The record took place under the auspices of the UK Timing Association at Alvington Airfield, Yorkshire, at the Straight Liner Speed Records event.
Tina Turner, the trailblazing black rocker whose powerful voice and imposing stage presence thrilled global audiences for decades, died Wednesday at the age of 83. Tributes poured in from around the world, with some of music's biggest names lamenting the loss of a singular and instantly recognizable performer whose popularity spanned generations.
Rolling Stones frontman Mick Jagger, who legend has it learned his dance moves from the diva, said the world had lost an enormously talented performer and singer. Bandmate Ronnie Wood called Turner the queen of rock and soul and a dear friend. Fans lined up to pay tribute at the wrought iron gates of her huge compound in Kosnacht on Switzerland's Lake Zurich, many bearing candles and flowers. Chateau Algonquin had been the home Turner shared with her German husband, Erwin Bach, for almost 3 decades, including when she took Swiss citizenship in 2013 and relinquished her U.S. passport. U.S. President Joe Biden paid a pointed tribute to a once-in-a-generation talent that changed American music forever. Turner's Britain-based publicist Bernard Doherty said her death came after a long illness and had robbed the world of a music legend and a role model. He gave no details of the illness.
Back on track, Brazil continues Under-20 World Cup challenge. Stay with us. Brazil got their FIFA Under-20 World Cup campaign back on track with a dominant 6-0 win over a 10-man Dominican Republic on Wednesday in Mendoza. Having lost their Group D opener 3-2 against Italy, the 5-time champions went into the break 2-0 off following Savio and Marcos Leonardo strikes within 2 minutes of each other.
Jean Pedroso added his name to the score sheet in the 57th minute before Giovanni's low shot from just outside the box had the Brazilians cruising. Things went from bad to worse for the Dominican Republic when Captain Edison Azcona received his second yellow card with 5 minutes of regular time remaining. Stoppage time goals from Marlon Gomes and Matias Martins added shine to the victory as Brazil climbed to second in their group standings, level on 3 points with Italy, but ahead on goal difference.
Meanwhile, Nigeria put themselves on the doorstep of the Under-20 World Cup knockout stage after a 2-0 win over Italy on Wednesday kept them perfect in Argentina.
Salem Lawal's diving header gave Nigeria the lead in the 61st minute, and Jude Sunday sealed it in stoppage time to foul pressure on a team that started the tournament among the favourites. Nigeria opened the tournament with a 2-1 win over the Dominican, while Italy beat Brazil 3-2 in a battle of two of world football's powerhouses. Nigeria now sit atop Group D on 6 points ahead of their final group match against Brazil, while Italy remain on 3 points with all to play for in their final group match against the Dominican Republic on Saturday. In other matches, Colombia held on through 10 minutes of second half, at a time for a 2-1 win against Japan, whose Koryo Masuki missed a late penalty, while Senegal drew 1-1 with Israel and will need to combat Colombia on Saturday to have a chance of advancing.
Over in Spain, goals by Karim Benzema and Rodrigo earned Real Madrid a 2-1 win over mid-table Rayo Vallecano in La Liga last night, as fans and players showed their support for Vinicius Jr., who was subjected to racial abuse over the weekend. Real's Brazilian forward Vinicius received a tribute ahead of the game after being the target of racist insults during the 1-0 loss at Valencia on Sunday.
Real's players took to the pitch wearing shirts bearing Vinicius' number 20, while the captains of both teams wore armbands carrying anti-racism messages. Dressed in street clothes and visibly agitated, Vinicius joined his teammates on the pitch for a standing ovation after all the players posed next to an official La Liga banner, "Racists out of football." He was not part of the Real squad for the match, even though the red card he received at Valencia was overturned by the Spanish Football Federation on Tuesday and the subsequent suspension lifted. A knee issue forced Vinicius to miss training ahead of the fixture, Spanish media reported, and he watched the game sitting next to Real Madrid president Florentino Perez.
Meanwhile, La Liga President Javier Tebas apologized on Wednesday for his online rant at Real Madrid player Vinicius Jr. after the Brazilian took to social media to complain about racist insults he suffered during a match and the Spanish league's inaction.
Tebas said he shared the 22-year-old's frustration over the lack of action to eradicate racism in Spain and took aim at football organisers and Spanish authorities, saying neither were doing enough to clamp down on racism. He said that he felt impotent to tackle racism in football as under Spanish law, La Liga can only detect and report racist incidents, urging legislative changes for it to have sanctioning powers to be able to fight racism more effectively. Valencia's South Stand will be partially closed for 5 matches and the club was fined €45,000 after abuse suffered by Vinicius.
Defender Jordi Alba will leave Barcelona at the end of the season after 11 years with the Catalan outfit. The 34-year-old Spain international has played more than 450 games for Barcelona, winning the Champions League in 2015, 6 La Liga titles, 5 Copa del Rey titles, 4 Spanish Super Cups and the Club World Cup. Alba came up through Barcelona's La Masia academy but left in 2005 and made a name for himself at Valencia before rejoining the Catalan club in 2012. In a statement, Barcelona expressed its gratitude to Alba for his professionalism, commitment and dedication and his ever-positive and friendly relationship with all members of the Barca family. Alba made 23 league appearances this season as Barcelona claimed their 27th La Liga title earlier this month, but a large number of those appearances came from the bench, with manager Javi Hernandez preferring to start 19-year-old Alejandro Balde. Alba is the third long-serving player to leave Barcelona this season, with defensive midfielder Sergio Busquets also set to depart, while defender Gerard Piqué announced his retirement in November. The left-back is the current captain of Spain and has made 91 international appearances. He was part of the squad which won Euro 2012. Top seed Felix Auger-Aliassime overcome Pablo Lamas Ruiz of Spain in straight sets 7-5, 6-2 to advance to the quarterfinals of the Lyon Open on Wednesday. The Canadian world number 10 will face 18-year-old French wildcard Arthur Fils, who was given a walkover after his opponent Michael Ymer was disqualified for smashing a racket on the umpire's chair.
World number 53, Ymer was infuriated by a line call that did not go his way in the first set of his second round match against 18-year-old wildcard Arthur Fils. However, when the Frenchman then broke Ymer's serve to go up 6-5, the 24-year-old Swede took his anger out on the umpire, smashing his racket and leaving a hole in the chair. Ymer was immediately disqualified, allowing Fils to advance to a quarter-final against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Cameron Norrie and Tommy Paul, the number 2 and 3 seeds respectively, also booked their spots in the quarters. Paul set up an All-American last 8 tie against Brandon Nakashima, having overcome Gregoire Berare 7-6, 4-6, 6-3 in a match suspended due to bad